360-degree feedback today on the Daily Ish Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
I love when I stumble on my own words before I even get it out, like the first half syllable of the show. You just know it's going to be a good one at that point, right? Well, it's good to see everybody. Welcome to the Daily Ish Show, a show not just for rental housing providers, but anybody looking to get a little bit more white space on your calendar. It's good to see you. Today, we are going to be talking about 360-degree feedback. And this was a really popular thing back, and I believe in the 1980s. It was kind of all in vogue. All of a sudden, these firms were adopting 360-degree feedback mechanisms, and then I think it became back in vogue in the 90s, and then we were spared it for a little while, and then it's coming back around. But it's actually not a modern thing. It's actually was come up with in the 1930s with the German Reichswehr, which is the fancy way of saying German army. And there was a military psychologist, I will not remember his name, but he came up with this 360-degree feedback mechanism to select officers in the German army, which is really cool. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is the 360-degree feedback mechanism in a way that you might actually be able to employ this so you can advance. And obviously, this is something that I talk about in masterminds and obviously in my coaching and stuff like that. But the really cool thing is that 360-degree feedback provides feedback for all of the areas of your life. Now, for those of you who may, I know this was in a book. I'm not sure which book, but I've seen it brought up in many different ways, is this concept of the wheel of life. And depending on which actual wheel of life you look at, you'll see things on there like personal growth and finances, health, spirituality, business, wellness, all sorts of different things. And about literally, again, 8 to 12 to 14 other things that you might see depending on which wheel of life that you look at. Okay. So these are, again, there's no one right way. There's business wheels of life. There's personal wheels of life. I've seen quite a few different iterations of that. But another mechanism that I have seen used for a 360-degree feedback mechanism is something called a mastermind. Now, let me explain. You might be thinking, well, I've heard of masterminds. Masterminds have become kind of popular, in the last, I'd say roughly 15 to 20 years. A lot of people have taken masterminds out of Napoleon Hill's book, and I think it was Think and Grow Rich. Actually, was one of the books that where he was using a mastermind, mostly of fictitious people. But the point is that he was using this as a 360-degree feedback mechanism for himself. Let me first say what a mastermind is not. A mastermind is not group coaching. Group coaching, in my mind, again, this is just my definition, but a group coaching environment is not where one person stands up in front and teaches or proselytizes or whatever to a large group of people. That's group coaching. That's not a mastermind. Okay. And I have seen several different iterations of that where I'm thinking, where they're saying, oh, I go to my mastermind. I'm like, oh, tell me how does it work? What's it like? And everything they're describing to me sounds like a group coaching call. I'm like, that's not a mastermind. Again, certainly different ways to run a mastermind. So I'm just going to kind of share with you what my truth is, not necessarily the truth, but just what I feel like a mastermind truly is. First of all, the nice thing about a mastermind is you're going to get a group of people with similar interests, not the same, but similar. So in other words, you could have a mastermind just around real estate people. You could have a mastermind just around small business folks. You could have a mastermind around certain religious beliefs or whatever. But generally, they are a group of people with similar interests, okay? Or they're at least trying to head in a similar direction, okay? Now, the real benefit of a mastermind is the fact that they have varied backgrounds and experiences, right? So you're not just getting the same advice that you might give yourself. No, in fact, you're actually in this mastermind where you have people with very different backgrounds, and maybe they are on the same path as you, but they're just a little further ahead, or maybe they're a little bit further behind, or maybe they have, even if they are a little bit further behind, they have figured something out that maybe they just figured something out a little bit sooner than you have, right? So there's some obvious benefits to being in a mastermind. And I absolutely love the mastermind groups, not only the ones that I belong to. I belong to one mastermind, but I also host two different mastermind groups that are in my inner circle. And I absolutely love them. First and foremost, the main reason that I see with people is these are people who love to be in contribution to others, and they love to teach. They love to say, "Hey, look, you know what? I know exactly where you're struggling with. Let me share with you how I sorted this out, or maybe you haven't really thought of this particular problem. Have you tried this, or have you tried that?" But they're massively pouring into one another in massive contribution, which is really cool because especially in the groups that I belong to and the ones that I oversee, is it's almost like everybody in the group is trying to outdo one another with their with their advice, right? Like, hey, let me see if I can give better advice than the last one. Or, and I know that sounds a little like competitive, but I mean, what a cool environment for it to have people pouring into you for 45 minutes to an hour while you're saying, hey, here's kind of the problem I'm running into, or hey, here's where I'm at in this situation, or maybe I'm just feeling stuck. I'm not sure why. And they help try to get you unstuck. They give you advice, and they're just pouring into you for contribution during that entire time, which is obviously a really cool benefit, right? The really cool thing though is that you get feedback from all these various sources, which kind of goes back to the 360-degree feedback mechanism that we kind of talked about, right? Now, the reason why I think this is so powerful, and the reason why I love this um, uh, this is a mechanism, especially for 360-degree feedback, is the fact that there might be things that you haven't really considered, right? So you might be saying, hey, look, I'm having this business problem, right? And as the business problem, they're giving you different advice, and they're like, well, hold on a second, you haven't really talked much about what's going on at home. What's going on at home? Because, if things aren't right at home, things are never going to be right anywhere, right? And all of a sudden, someone might pull on that thread, which uncovers what a real issue might be, right? That's the whole benefit of having that 360-degree feedback, where that person may have just climbed out of a really bad situation at home, and they go, look, man, yeah, I was making a ton of money, and like things in business were really should have been going well, but nothing was going well because nothing was right at home. And if it wasn't for that one individual that maybe had a different experience of, yeah, I was focused too much on work. I was spending too much time at work. I wasn't really focused on the things I was telling everybody that I was really getting out of bed for in the morning. Yeah, I'm getting out of bed for my kids and my family, but yet how much intention were you actually spending on that? How much energy were you actually giving to your family? Well, if it was very limited, then obviously that's something that's getting neglected, and relationships need to be nurtured. They don't operate on remote control. You have to spend time on them. So in that particular case, you might have an individual who's going to give you feedback on something you never even thought was a problem, right? And the other cool thing is you're going to learn to solve problems that you haven't even considered to be on your horizon. And this is probably one of the most massive benefits. I would say this is at least half of the benefit that I see in a mastermind. And this is why I love attending them, and this is why I love hosting them. So let's pretend that you and I are sitting there in a mastermind, and I like to keep the masterminds. My masterminds are fairly small. They have 12 individual seats, which means that, if it's one couple that owns one seat, so you might only have, 15 or 16 people in the room. But I like to keep them to 12 seats. So let's pretend that you and I are sitting there, and Bob over there is having a problem with something, and I don't really have much to contribute in that moment, and neither do you. But all of a sudden, Jim gives Bob a piece of advice that not only did I not really understand his problem, but I never even thought of that as a solution over here from Jim. I love that my mind just explodes in so many different directions at that point that that's the real benefit that I feel is in a mastermind session where you're getting this 360-degree feedback loop, this feedback mechanism, because you're going to learn to solve problems in ways you have never, ever even considered. And you're not even really thinking of those problems to be on the horizon. So lots of different ways of the 360 degree feedback and lots of different ways to administer it. And again, the way that I administer a mastermind is not necessarily the way. I'm sure there's plenty of different ways, but yeah, they're really, really very, very powerful and massively helpful and massively transformative. Everybody that has attended one, I would be hard pressed to find someone that says, "Well, man, what a waste of time." They were just really, really good. If you'd like to talk more about that, you feel free to reach out to me at landlordcoach.com. But I am very much looking forward to having some time off at the end of this month. Um, just really, I love this time of year, and hopefully, all of you are learning to place a value on your free time because if you don't, someone else will. And of course, remember there is no amount of money that will make time irrelevant. So make sure you're taking time for your loved ones, especially this time of year. Fantastic time of year to reset your visions, metaphorically burn it all down, start fresh. Don't bring anything back in from the last year. Just go review your goals and go, man, that was really cool. What a great year. And metaphorically burn it all down, rebuild that vision for a very strong 2023. And I will see you next time.